It was the first time in my life my dad forgot my birthday. I remember waking up that morning to the sound of rain tapping softly on my window, the kind of slow, gray rain that makes everything feel quieter than it should. I checked my phone. A few messages from friends, one from my mom, but nothing from him. At first I laughed it off. He was probably busy, maybe stuck at work again or out running errands. But as the hours passed, that small ache in my chest began to grow. He'd never missed a birthday before. Even when I was little and we barely had enough money for cake, he'd always find a way to make it special. A handmade card, a tiny cupcake, or a candle stuck into a piece of toast because he said every birthday deserves a light. That was just who he was. By evening, I couldn't pretend anymore. I sat by the window, watching cars pass under the streetlight, waiting for his text, or at least a call. Nothing came. It was quiet, except for the sound of my disappointment echoing in that silence. When the clock hit midnight, I whispered to myself, I guess people really do change. I tried to sleep, but my mind wouldn't stop replaying all those birthdays from before, the ones where he'd stay up just to see me smile. This year, not even a single word. Somewhere deep down, I wanted to believe there was a reason. But that night, as I stared at my dark ceiling, the only thing I felt was forgotten. The next morning, I came downstairs expecting at least a smile. Maybe an awkward, "Hey, kiddo, I owe you one." But he was already gone. His coffee cup sat on the counter, still half full, a ring of steam marking the place where he'd been just moments before. The house felt strangely empty, like even the walls were avoiding eye contact. I tried to brush it off, telling myself he was just busy again. But when I looked at the calendar on the fridge, the one where he usually circled my birthday in red ink, it was blank. No note, no reminder, just silence staring back at me. That night, when he finally came home, I waited in the living room, pretending to read. The door creaked open, and he walked in, shoulders heavy, eyes tired, the faint smell of oil and metal following him in, the scent of the workshop he spent most of his life in. "Hey, sweetheart," he said softly, trying to smile. I looked up and forced one back, even though my heart was screaming. "Long day?" I asked. He nodded, dropping his tool bag by the door. "Yeah, you could say that." He rubbed the back of his neck, glancing toward the kitchen. "You eat yet?" That was it. No happy birthday, no sorry I missed it. Just small talk, like it was any other night. I wanted to scream, to ask him why, to remind him that yesterday wasn't just another day. But when I looked at his hands, calloused, trembling slightly, something in me softened. He looked older, tired in a way I hadn't noticed before. So instead, I just said, "Yeah, I ate." And he smiled, that small, quiet kind of smile that hides a world of things unsaid. Later that night, I heard his footsteps in the hallway, stopping outside my room. For a moment, the floorboards creaked. Then nothing. He stood there for a long while. I could feel it, but he never knocked. And somehow, that silence said more than words ever could. A few days passed, but the silence between us didn't fade. It just changed shape. He still asked how my day was, still packed my lunch for work, still left the porch light on when I came home late. But there was a distance now, a quiet wall made of unspoken words and tired smiles. One evening, I came home early and found him asleep on the couch, his head tilted back, his hand still clutching a small envelope. On the coffee table beside him lay a few scattered papers, bills, receipts, and a folded brochure for the local trade school scholarship program. I frowned, gently picking it up. Across the top, in bold letters, it read, "Full tuition sponsorship for promising artists." My heart stopped. It was the same scholarship I'd dreamed about since I was 16, the one I'd mentioned once, months ago, before quietly giving up on it because of the cost. My name was scribbled on the corner in his handwriting. Next to it were notes in the margins, calculations, deadlines, small reminders like call Monday and ask about payment plan. He'd been looking into it, for me. I sank onto the couch, staring at him. The man who could barely afford to fix his own car, spending his nights figuring out how to buy me a future. His face looked softer in sleep, lined but peaceful, like the weight of the world had finally set him down for a moment. I noticed the gray in his hair, the faint scar on his wrist, the marks of a life spent working, building, giving. and for the first time in days, I didn't feel angry. I slipped the brochure back where it was, careful not to wake him, and covered him with a blanket. As I did, something slipped out from under his arm. Another piece of paper, folded and worn. I hesitated before picking it up. It was a receipt from the art supply store downtown. The date, my birthday. The total, more than he could ever afford. And written at the bottom, in messy blue ink, were 3 words that hit me like a storm. Happy birthday, kid. He hadn't forgotten. He'd just been busy, making a sacrifice I never asked for, and one I'd never forget. The next morning, I found him at the kitchen table, staring into his coffee like it held all the answers he didn't want to say out loud. For a moment, I just stood there, watching the man who'd given up everything, pretending he hadn't. Then I took a breath and sat across from him. "Dad," I said softly, "why didn't you tell me?" He looked up surprised, his eyes tired but kind. "Tell you what?" I slid the crumpled receipt across the table. "The one from the art store. The one dated on my birthday." He froze, his hands tightening around his mug. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the soft ticking of the old wall clock, steady, like a heartbeat. "You weren't supposed to see that," he whispered finally. "I wasn't supposed to forget either, but I didn't. Not really." He sighed and rubbed his forehead. "I just wanted it to be a surprise, something special, something that mattered." His voice cracked a little. I ran out of time. I stared at him, my throat tight. "Dad, you were working extra shifts again, weren't you?" He smiled faintly, the kind of tired smile that says, "You already know the answer." "You've got dreams, Emma, bigger than this small town, bigger than me. I just wanted to help you get there. Even if it meant missing one day, one that should have been about you." I felt my eyes sting. "Dad, you could have just told me." He shook his head. "Nah, you've got enough to worry about. You don't need to carry my struggles too." He looked down at his rough hands. "You're my kid, Emmer, my whole world. And if I have to forget one day to give you the rest of yours, that's a trade I'd make again." I couldn't hold it in anymore. I stood up and walked around the table, wrapping my arms around him from behind. He didn't move for a moment. Then I felt his hand cover mine, trembling. "I don't need scholarships or art schools to know how lucky I am. I just need you." He turned, pulling me into a full embrace. His voice was low, almost a whisper against my hair. "You've got me, kiddo. Always." And just like that, all the hurt, all the confusion, all the things we didn't say, they melted into something simple and pure. Love. That night, I sat by the window, the one that faced the old oak tree, and thought about everything that had happened. The candles on my cake had burned down hours ago, but the warmth they left behind, it stayed. So did his words. I looked at the small, unfinished painting leaning against the wall, the one he'd been saving for. It wasn't perfect, just a few brush strokes and outlines, but somehow it was beautiful, because it was his way of saying, "I never forgot you." Funny how love doesn't always come with grand gestures or perfect timing. Sometimes it's hidden in quiet sacrifices, in late-night shifts, in the soft sighs of someone who just wants to make life easier for you. I used to think birthdays were about being celebrated, but that night I learned they were about being loved. Days turned into weeks, and life went on. School, work, deadlines. But every time I felt tired, I'd remember that kitchen morning, his hands wrapped around that mug, his eyes full of love he never said out loud. And somehow it gave me strength. Now, years later, when I look at him, older, slower, still smiling that same tired smile, I see more than a father. I see a man who gave up his own dreams so I could find mine. A man who forgot a date, but never forgot me. And maybe that's what family really is. Not perfection, not always remembering everything, but showing up again and again, even when it's hard. So if you're listening right now, call your dad, or hug him, or just say thank you. Because sometimes the people who say the least love us the most. This is Emma Hale, and this was the birthday I'll never forget.